This is the download recap from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Gavin Gaddis. The download recap is brought to you by Podscribe. You can find out more at podscribe.com. Now, let's get into this week's news. Podcasting is a core pillar of South by Southwest 2027. For the past 5 years, our team has been proud to build a home for podcasting at South by Southwest. In 2027, that commitment will finally reach an exciting new milestone as South by has announced it's ready to embrace the medium with the launch of its first ever podcast festival for official ticket holders. We are also bringing Podcast Movement Evolutions back to the SKYBOX on 6th venue on March 15th and 16th for 2 days of programming and networking immediately before the 4-day South by Podcast Festival. Podcast Movement Evolutions will remain completely free to attend with no South by Southwest badge required. The two events create an entire week dedicated to podcasting in Austin in 2027. We're incredibly proud of the work our team and partners have put into elevating and prioritizing podcasting within one of the world's most influential media festivals, and we're excited to continue building alongside South by Southwest as podcasting's presence continues to grow. That Stupid Radio by Tom Webster. Tom Webster's argument this week is that podcasting is missing the one advantage that powered every prior audio boom, a default. Radio, the Walkman, and the iPod all won on dedicated hardware that made listening effortless, while podcasting stays locked behind app menus and a 5-decision path of finding, remembering, and searching that filters for enthusiasts and quietly sheds everyone else. Content quality, he argues, was never the real bottleneck. The data behind the case is stark. In 2008, just 4% of Americans had no radio at home, and by 2022, that figure has jumped to 39%, with 57% of those aged 12 to 34 now living in homes with 0 radio devices. Podcasts capture only about 12% of ad-supported smart speaker listening, while AM/FM streams command the majority. And Tesla has already dropped broadcast radio from its entry-level cars. The dedicated hardware that once delivered audiences to a medium is disappearing. Webster's warning is that defaults are the new spectrum, and they are being allocated privately by Apple, Google, Amazon, and automakers with no industry seat at the table. His fix is appliance thinking rather than more choice, curated streams, autoplay stations, and a coordinated push for dashboard placement so casual listeners can fall into podcasting the way they once fell into spoken word radio. Announcing the Podcast Study 2026 with a focus on discovery, loyalty, and monetization. Point-to-point marketing and strategic solutions research are teaming up on the Podcast Study 2026, a new listener research project co-sponsored by Crooked Media, NPR, and PRX, led by Point-to-Point's Tim Bronsel and Strategic Solutions' Hal Rood. The study zeroes in on the 3 questions that most directly shape whether shows grow and get paid: discovery, loyalty, and monetization. As Rood frames the stakes, quote, "Every podcaster is asking how to turn audience into revenue. Nobody is handing them a map," end quote. The research digs into how listeners actually find shows, from word of mouth and social clips to platform recommendations and the frequency of exposure that converts a trial into a habit. Then how quickly they abandon new podcasts and what keeps them coming back. On monetization, it examines host-read, advertising effectiveness, subscriptions, memberships, and live events, along with video preferences and demographic differences. That ad question is timely, arriving alongside Point-to-Point's look at what happens when skipping gets easier as Spotify tests its skip ahead button, where Bronsel argues the real opportunity is making ads compelling enough that listeners choose not to skip. Initial findings will be presented September 14th and 15th at the Sounds Profitable Business Summit in New York City, with follow-up webinars to come, and Inside Radio detailed the partnership behind the launch. YouTube redefines the view as an engaged view. YouTube is renaming what used to count as a view to an engaged view, and the change is not cosmetic. Comparing both figures across 300,000 YouTube podcast episodes, Pod News found engaged views run about 7% lower on average, with some shows dropping considerably further. The trouble is the definition. In a follow-up, YouTube clarified that an autoplay on homepage now counts as a view, a normal view, not an engaged one, the moment it starts. And it's an engaged view if it keeps playing if some unspecified number of seconds elapses. That is loose enough to include silent autoplays that register with a viewer's eyes closed, and it sits out of step with the 30-second play standard the industry proposed in the AMP Accords. For anyone putting video episodes on the platform, the downstream effects are real. Digiday breaks down the winners and losers of YouTube's new monetization overhaul, which could reshape CPMs and sponsorship math, and the inconsistency leaves creators benchmarking audience and pricing ads against a number that no longer means what it used to. Now it's time for quick hits. These are articles that didn't fit into the top story section, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. First up, Basis and Barometer now enable episode-level brand suitability ad targeting on podcasts, giving advertisers pre-bid, category-level control without resorting to show-level blocking. Triton Digital has released its Australian podcast ranker for July 2026, the latest monthly snapshot of the country's most downloaded shows. The Podcast Academy expanded the 2027 Ambies to 35 categories, adding Best Music Podcast and Episode of the Year, plus a new Listener's Choice vote. Transistor added an MCP server, letting creators connect their podcast data to Claude, ChatGPT, and other AI assistants. And in We Are Not Sending This One Out, FlightPath's Michael Davinsky and Sean Howard introduced Automation Playbooks, a new set of tools built to combat unreliable ad delivery from podcast ad tech partners. That wraps it up for this week's download recap. You can find links to everything I just talked about by clicking the link in your show notes to go to today's episode post on our site, where we have everything. And you can subscribe to the newsletter version to get it sent to your inbox every week. As usual, I'm Gavin Gaddis here for Sounds Profitable and Podscribe. Our producers are myself, Tom Webster, Brian Barletta, and Molly DeMillier. And as usual, thanks to you for sticking with me as I brought you the top stories you might have missed from this week in the business of podcasting. Robot.
Download complete.